Do you still trust women after working in nightlife for 20 years?
Ooh, good question.
You see a lot of cheating. I remember a girl was on a girls' night out in the bar, and she basically, her friends left and she got talking to a guy. Obviously, she had the wedding ring on. The guy is actually somebody I know very well. All her friends leave. She says she wants to stay. One of the friends kind of lingers for a little while, trying to get her to leave, and knows what's about to go down. The girl just shoos her away. She ends up leaving. So now it's just her and him. Obviously, we're walking, we know where this is going to end up.
Right.
So he's looking at me going, yo, she's married. I'm like, dude, I don't want to part of this, right? Wow. Yeah, I don't really know the girl. Anyway, she gets on the phone and she's right near me at the end of the bar, and she calls her husband. Hey, babe, Stacy's vomiting and stuff. I'm going to stay with her and look after her. And so I'm going to be home late, or I might just sleep at Stacy's house, depending on how she looks.
Wow.
I don't know who Stacy is, but she sure as ain't in the bar at this point, right?
Oh my God.
Right, so fast forward a few hours, you see them making out and the whole nine. They disappear. I believe dumpsters were involved, right? Yes.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, they disappeared. It's a hidden spot, He comes back in.
Yo, this dude telling this, it's the spot we like to take the wives to. They like the spot behind the dumpsters. It's where we clap cheeks.
Like, Rishi, I'm out. And I'm like, daps me up, leaves. I'm like, dude. She comes in 3 minutes later, just adjusting herself, calls her husband, has him pick her up at the bar, comes in, and she's introducing him to people like nothing happened. And I'm just like, I'm scarred. I'm scarred for life.
That's
That's it. That's the video. And now he's scarred for life. The story's so depressing. The top comment says, love is dead. Somebody else here says, the first problem was, why would my wife be at a bar? Either way, we're all cooked. You know what? I actually agree with this comment right here. This right here, today is actually a very controversial statement. Because a lot of chicks out here who date today believe that once they're married, it's okay to go to a place. And I think dudes, like a lot of simps who are also in relationships, have also made this a common thing. Women think it's okay to be at a place where the only thing that's happening is liquor, loud music, and snacks to keep you going for the rest of the night, right? Sometimes they won't even have the food, but I don't think any person who's in a committed marriage should be at a place where the only thing they have there is liquor to alter your state of mind and impair your judgment, along with music and a bunch of dudes who are trying to see if they can get you to cheat on your man. It does not make sense. So here's a funny story. I've actually been a bouncer before. I saw some stuff, but with me, I didn't stay long enough because the reason I was there, I was talking to one of my good friends. And one thing I noticed is there's a certain culture when it comes to nightlife that it just wasn't for me, because I was looking for something on the side. I was working and I was like, man, I need something on the side. And he said, have you ever thought of being a bouncer? He's like, they would take you. I'm like, you know what? I go to this place, I apply, I get hired almost immediately because I knew somebody else who already worked there. And I realized that like the type of men who do that type of job, they kind of all know each other, like in the city. And so I get there, I'm excited, nice chill job, something on the side, I'll do on the weekends. First night, boom, fight breaks out right where they check the IDs. I'm involved with some other dudes. And after that situation, I watched the other dudes who were doing security show up. They do like a citizen's arrest, zip ties, and like arrest this dude. And I'm thinking to myself, why did you have to work at the ratchet spot in downtown? You could have picked another chill bar where they play some country music, but here you are. But I stayed not long enough to see too many of these crazy stories like the guy was sharing, but long enough to realize that sometimes they didn't pay you on time, and that couldn't be me. So I had to let that job go. Next comment here says, girls' night equals breakup. Somebody else here says, I don't care if you go out as long as you're not my girl. Somebody else here says, bartender for 5+ years here, and I've seen enough to know girls' night is never girls' night. Same with girls' trips. Here you go. Hearing it from a bartender. I will tell you this, something about being security that just puts you like in the advantage when it comes to the power dynamic. within nightclubs. Like chicks just want to flirt with security who they think are attractive. Right. I saw that. I experienced that many, many times. This dude said, I would have been a snitch that night. Here's somebody else who says she's doing single activities. I think it's crazy that men are usually not the type to speak out. Here's the other thing, too. A lot of dudes think to themselves when they see something like this. They kind of look at it and think, wow, this guy's a joke. Chances are somebody who's able to not catch on to things like this, who thinks, hey, bro, I'm secure. My girl can go out and get drunk around a bunch of thirsty dudes. They think like, what's the point? Trying to convince this guy to not do what he's already doing is almost a failed mission. Not me. Stay safe, y'all. Somebody else here says, bro code is knowing not to do things with someone if they're married. Shaking my head. Yeah, I could never do that, bro. Bro code. Listen, I think bro code is a beautiful thing, and I think it should be implemented more, but I don't have faith. I don't have faith in most men when it comes to sexual discipline today. Most men would smash and break that bro code just because so many dudes lack sexual discipline. Put them in a situation where a woman's offering it. Most guys can't turn that down. This is part of the reason why we have so many simps today, is they're so ready to do whatever women want and believe anything from man and woman. Why? Because of the hope that maybe somewhere deep down inside, she might let me hit. All right, guys, moving on. I want to talk about this Bow Wow situation. Have you guys heard about this? Bow Wow in 2019 was arrested in Atlanta on battery charges after altercation with a particular woman. Now, this was the photo they posted of his mugshot and the arrest. If you're looking at how his face is tagged and marked up, it looks like she should be the one getting posted for that arrest. But in 2019, people were still very much afraid to speak the truth when it came to these type of issues. And a lot of people probably assumed that he did her worse, or maybe that she deserved this. But since 2019, we have heard nothing about this particular situation until now. Here's what came out recently. Body cam footage was released from this particular day. Check it out. Shout out to the Queen of Accountability.
You know what I mean?
See this? Okay, see this lamp? We can get right to it. She took the thing off, grabbed the lamp.
What did she take?
The lamp.
The lamp, okay.
She took my lamp.
And hit you with it?
What? Look at my face.
Okay, and then what did you do?
Nothing. Did you see her face? Nothing. Look how no lip, everything. She went ballistic.
So here's a side by side. And yes, we're going to talk about the police officer's disregard for his traumatic experience, because a man can't have traumatic experiences, right? Take a look at his face, marked and scratched up, and look at hers, clean-faced. It's just based on these two photos. If someone revealed these two photos to you and said, who do you think beat up who? Well, most people who don't drink coffee would look at this and try to figure out a way to justify it so that Bow Wow is the aggressor, when it's very obvious who the aggressor in this photo, in these mugshots, actually is. Let's keep listening.
Okay.
And I got witnesses. They were all in the house. She took the thing off. Wow. I'm like, what's wrong with you? I said, you gotta leave. You leave now. I ain't going nowhere. I'm not going nowhere. You're gonna leave my house now. I don't care what you call. I never saw my face until just now when you came up and I saw my shit. I'm like, oh my God, my shit is crazy.
Okay.
Scratch my face. I'm walking to my nightstand.
All right.
I'm walking to my nightstand.
Yes, you know what I mean?
See this? Okay,
Yeah.
see this lamp? We can get right to it. She took the thing off, grabbed the lamp.
Okay, so that's it. And so hearing that police officer, hearing his tone and his reaction, this is why a lot of dudes don't even bother to go and share an actual story of where they were the victim, because in a lot of cases, they aren't taken seriously. It doesn't matter, because, you know, someone else can say real justifiably and say, well, what was you doing messing with her? You should pick better. Okay. I think there's a place for that conversation. But there also needs to be a place where she is charged because of what we can see with our own eyes. The evidence is on his face, Your Honor. Let's check out this caption here from the Queen of Accountability. It reads, the body cam on the incident where Bow Wow was assaulted in 2019 has been released. Notice how the cop didn't seem to care about what Bow Wow was saying. She assaulted him and messed up his face, yet both of them ended up in jail. He asked her many times to leave, but she refused. This is why men often don't report when they're assaulted. Even if they're clearly the victims, the men still face consequences. Just look at their mugshot. She doesn't have a blemish, yet Bow Wow was arrested too. If her face had marks, only Bow Wow would have gone to jail. This needs to change. Definitely needs to change. Top comment here says, on the shade room, the broads are laughing and making fun of him. Yeah, the shade room is the worst place to think that you're going to get any serious ounce of reaction to obviously toxic situations. They glorify the toxicity. They're the same people who still to this day have a problem with Simone Biles, who successfully married to a man who they are upset does not worship her. But the blue faces in Christian rocks, they celebrate. Somebody else here says, WTF, why was he arrested? Here's another person who says, there was a clip of him in the elevator in her face or personal space, not condoning violence. So of course, this is a chick here who decided to chime in. She responded back and says, he told her to leave. Did he put his hands on her? Yes or no? If I tell you to leave my house, I mean that shit. So the Queen of Accountability responded there. And somebody else here says, OMG, Miss Lady, what is your ring size? My guy here is ready to propose. There's a real serious lesson here that also can be learned for sure when it comes to some of these crazy, crazy chicks. Just because she may have a cute face and fat cheeks, it doesn't mean that it won't come without hell. And a lot of these chicks who look good on the gram come with hell. Somebody else here added, the officer didn't give two shits. Here's another person who says, this is terrible, that he got arrested, but mad respect to Bow Wow to holding it together even when he had every reason to lose it. Who is this chick anyways? What's crazy is that, like, the fact that we're asking who is this chick is wild. Sometimes I forget that I have my AI assistant, Miss Coffee, who can help me quicker than I can do research sometimes. But the reason I say that, guys, is because you got to think about this, right? You could be this strong, successful dude. You've built an empire of success. Any man you can think of out here. And a no-name 304 can come and destroy it all. Just be known for that. And just disappear into nothingness after she's ruined your whole reputation. We've seen this with Jonathan Majors. We've seen this with many other guys who've chosen women who they probably should have and played a role in getting involved in. Miss Coffee, what's the chick's name who attacked Bow Wow in 2019 and marked up his face? I bet you she's not even known for anything serious other than probably been an Instagram model.
The woman involved in the 2019 incident with Bow Wow Shad Moss is Leslie Holden. She's also known by the name Kiyomi Leslie. Both Bow Wow and Leslie Holden were arrested following a dispute in Atlanta, and Bow Wow's scratched face from their altercation was widely publicized in his mugshot.
Leslie Holden. What is she known for, Miss Coffee? What is she known for, other than being a 304?
Leslie Holden is primarily known as a social media personality and model.
Oh, who could have guessed?
Here are a few other notable points about her.
What?
Social media presence. She gained a following on Instagram for her modeling photos and lifestyle content.
Wow. Lifestyle content.
Reality TV appearance. Kiyomi Leslie appeared on the reality series Growing Up Hip Hop, Atlanta, though not as a main cast member throughout the show's run. She made appearances connected to her then relationship with Bow Wow. Relationship with Bow Wow. A lot of her public profile comes from her very public relationship and subsequent breakup with rapper TV personality Shad Bow Wow Moss.
Okay, so listen, in full transparency, I don't know if this is like the mother of one of his kids or anything like that. Sounds like she's known for nothing other than being involved with him. And there you go, proves my point exactly. How easily any one of these chicks who's a model, an IG model, posting lifestyle content can destroy your life and really not be known for anything at all. All right, guys, moving on here. Next, I want to talk about Alexis Skyy.
Let me get my thoughts together.
Yeah.
What can you repeat that?
Yeah. How heavy has it been for people trying to critique? Is this real? Is this for show?
So he's asking, is this real? Is this for show? What are they talking about? A while back, I actually released a video titled Famous Model Alexis Skyy says she's done with the streets. I've changed. I'm born again. So they're talking about her conversion and being born again, giving her life to God, changing her life, so on and so forth. Every time a chick has done this, and even in that video, I said, hey, I hope this is genuine. I do. And I think anybody who is trying to change their life for the better, wants to improve their relationship with God, I support. Now, the majority of the people, of course, looked at this and said, this is a ploy, some type of a scheme of her maybe rebranding to try and target a different audience. Turns out they, I don't want to say we're right because that wasn't really it. Turns out she was dating a man and was converting because that's what he wanted. He wanted a woman who wasn't an ex-stripper, who didn't have an OnlyFans. Now, why would a man who's a professed Christian find the most difficult type of relationship he could possibly pursue? Because he's not thinking straight, and that's a problem in itself. Whole different conversation. We'll talk about all this here soon. Let's listen to her response. How did you deal with people saying you were faking Christianity?
It was never fake. My encounter with God was real.
Yeah.
I was just really just in a space where I was dating somebody, and I'm not going to say any names, and I'm thankful for this person because it was never that I never believed in God. I just wasn't really close to him. And it was somebody that was in my life that had an influence. And, you know, I was so focused on being a wife and being loved on and being wanted that I was just like, okay, well, I have to change who I am in order for this person to accept me.
Yeah.
And I was more so focused on that versus my walk with God. I was doing it more for what that person wanted, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I change my image on Instagram or I change how I am, then I'll be his wife or I'll do this. So it was more so like, okay, Alexis, are you ready for this? But I really wasn't ready, you know? And it's not saying that I wasn't ready to walk with God. It's just I wasn't doing it the right way. I was more so doing it for somebody else. And so it just happened overnight. So next thing you know, I'm on the internet telling the world, like, I stopped doing this, I stopped doing that, I stopped doing that. But this is who Alexis really was, you know?
Yeah.
And I was changing myself for somebody else and not for
Wow.
me. And
That's
that
powerful.
person had a major impact. And I don't regret it because that was what was supposed to happen. But just coming from, you know, I used to dance. I've been in trafficking and just the lifestyle that I've came from, that's all I know. So
Yeah.
people can't fault me for being on the internet, showing this or doing this or having an OnlyFans or doing that because that's all I was taught. I never went to college.
Yeah.
Lots of nuance here, people. Lots of nuance. Okay, so let's start off with what she said right there. I don't think she regrets meeting the guy, and that's what it sounds like, who got her closer to God. I don't think that she regrets that. It sounds like she's appreciative of that almost. And I really want to be careful here, but I think there are a few things to talk about when it comes to this particular situation, right? When you're a man and you're looking for a wife, and I've noticed this. I was thinking about this just yesterday. I said, man, it really doesn't matter whether a guy may live or uphold traditional values in his life. Because I've seen this not only with Christians, I've seen this with anybody who may not even identify as a Christian. They may be an atheist. They may be out here actually living wrong. You see dudes out here, when I say living wrong, I'm talking about like criminal activity. People who are obviously toxic in their own life. And they'll still want a feminine, submissive woman. What do I mean by that? That guy, the guy who probably was condoning her behavior. And what do I mean by that? I mean, even the most vile men, and there are some terrible men out here, when it's time for them to pick a woman who they want to marry, they don't want a woman who's done OnlyFans, who's been a stripper, so on and so forth. What does that have to do with this conversation? A lesson that can be learned here when it comes to men who are picking wives is, first off, why would you go and find a woman who you know hasn't prepared for the role of wife? That's the first thing. Because obviously it didn't work out, and here she is explaining why she was really trying to publicly show that, like, hey, look, I've changed. Why would she do that publicly? Because men care about their self-respect. He doesn't want to get told, oh man, you wife Alexis Skyy, bro? Like OnlyFans, like the stripper? Oh, but it doesn't mean she can't change. True. But your public perception does matter. Your past and reputation does matter. Does God forgive us all? Yes. But when it comes to your brand and who you are, it does matter. The consequences of your decisions, those oftentimes linger. So there's that one thing. The second thing is, if you are a chick and you think that you're going to get to, how old is Alexis Skyy? Miss Coffee, how old is Alexis Skyy? Something tells me she's around 30 years old. She's hit the epiphany phase. You know, this is when women start looking around. Their biological clock is ticking. Happens, and that's the later part, right? It usually starts earlier, 28. But she's probably around that age.
Alexis Skyy, often stylized as Alexis Skyy, was reportedly born on July 14, 1994. Based on that date of birth, July 14, 1994. Age as of early 2025, before July 14, 30 years old.
Wow. 30 years old. Guys, I promise you I did not do the research myself. So now she's wondering, how can I get a husband? She's thinking about the decisions she's made in her past. Cool. Here's the problem. This is not just a dating dynamic law principle. This is a life principle. You can't just hit a switch and change. Things take time. And sometimes the consequences and the trauma is so harsh of you being in the streets, you being a stripper, doing OnlyFans. You can't just hit that switch and say, oh, now I'm ready. Now I could be a wife. And multiple times we've seen the Brittany Renners and so many other chicks. And while, yes, you can change, God blessed us all with free will. It's a wonderful thing. It doesn't work like a switch. It takes years, and the consequences of living that life means that you've made that transition for yourself and understanding what it takes to be a wife that much harder. This is me, of course, assuming that, like, hey, she genuinely wants this, which again, I actually believe these chicks genuinely wanted this. However, your past matters, your body count matter. And her saying, I didn't go to college is not an excuse to do OnlyFans, right?
I don't know what it's like to have a degree. So my life is make fast money.
Yes.
You know, so that's all I know how to go back to. And even during my journey, it was almost like, okay, I'm here. I started thinking of other ways I can make money
Yes.
in the right way. So I came out with a journal, and they were saying I'm profiting from God. And I'm like, this doesn't make no sense.
Right.
How am I profiting from God when I just gave up thousands of dollars that I was making per month, hundreds of thousands, to literally surrender to him? And, you know, as each day.
And by the way, I don't agree with that personally for myself. I tend to stay away from placing judgments, and people think you can't judge. People judge every day. Stop being a hypocrite. You judge people for how they look. You judge them based on whether you give them a tip or not. You judge people based on whether you think they qualify for marriage. The world is part of judgment. But because I don't know, I'm not God, right? I respect the fact that when it comes to determining where someone's intentions, the Bible says, for example, you shall know them by their fruits. And that in itself, there's a lot of wisdom in that, because fruits take time. Fruits take time, and you can't really call something out, but it also reveals another part is you will know, right? You will know eventually by the fruits that person bears. But it takes time.
Got on. I'm like, okay, whether I was doing this for this man, I actually was like getting closer and closer. So even though I was doing it for him, I was still getting closer to God, and everything was starting to like make sense to me. I started understanding like, this is who I'm supposed to be. I have a calling on my life to help women like me. Yes. Help women that come from battered situations or that are in a nightlife that think that they're not worthy enough to be this. This is what God wants me to be, a vessel to these women. But it's not helping when I have 5.6 million followers attacking me. Everything I do, it's like, oh, this is not godly enough, or you're not a Christian. So I'm like, okay, this is like not making no sense. I might as well go back to doing what I was doing, because do y'all like me doing this or not? So at this point, it just became a confusion. Like, nothing was good enough for the internet. Nothing was good enough for him. He ended up leaving me in the midst of me changing. And I'm like, you promised to stay here and have my back financially, because you know I'm giving up everything. And he left me. So I'm like, it was more so I was like in fear. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to continue to live this lifestyle that I was living?
Wow. So she gave up the OnlyFans and that life, which, why are you, again, to the guy going after a chick who's doing OnlyFans? That's crazy. But she gave that up and said, hey, I'm going to trust in you to take care of me. And he left her. And the reason why he probably left her, and this is me, again, giving my take after observing this, is probably based on the fact that he saw that this can't be an overnight thing. It's that you can't just disable the OnlyFans account and stop flying to Dubai and do whatever, who knows happens over there in exchange for cash, or, doing something strange for a piece of change. You probably realize like, this will take time and she's not ready to be a wife. It doesn't work that way. There's no part in life that works this way. I do still wish her the best. And one thing I heard her just say is it wasn't good enough for the internet. You can't do things for the internet. There are a bunch of people outside of the church who are hypocrites. There are a bunch of people who are Christians who are hypocrites. You do it and you base it on your personal relationship with God. You'll never be good enough for everybody out here. If Jesus couldn't please people, what makes you think you can? Top comment here says, you have to do it on your own and not for something or someone else. Wow, yeah, there we go. What I said. And so a few people actually responded to this particular situation, and I want to hear what they have to say. Let's check it out.
So Alexis Skyy admitted on an interview that her whole Christian rebrand was to keep a man, secure a man that ended up leaving her in the end anyways. We already knew that, sis. We already knew that, okay? We said it and we were called haters, but discernment is real. And you can tell when, someone is doing it for the aesthetic, when somebody's doing it for a man, it's very obvious. And it's just like, of course it didn't work out. Of course it didn't work out. Like, if you're pretending to be something that you're not, eventually, like, you're unhappy to try to make somebody else happy. Like, of course it's not going to work out. And clearly y'all are unequally yoked if, he wants this Christian, modest woman and that's not you. Like, I don't understand what's up with men who go after women who are clearly not what they're looking for and trying to change them. Weird on both parts.
Growing up in the church, I saw what she's saying right there of men who pick these women. And I used to have this mindset because I grew up in the church, man. I remember being young. You see somebody, there's this like weird dynamic where the Bible teaches a lot of men to fix, be a good steward and help other people. That line can be blurred when it comes to damaged women. And I do mean damaged women. Yes, I said it. And are we all damaged? Yes. But the truth is the degree matters, right? No one's better than anybody else, but there is people who've been through more trauma and they're there in the church. And a lot of Christian dudes are drawn to those women because they want to help. And then it turns into this thing of, maybe this is my calling. Maybe I was here to actually help this chick out. God wants me to fix it. And in the process of fixing her, you're effed up by the end of it all. And I think a lot of dudes fall into that. There's a lot of that, which I think you need to watch out for, because, it could take away from what you truly think you deserve. And then you overlook the women who are actually going to give you a peaceful life, because you're going to go through hell, guaranteed, if you link yourself to a woman who still has a lot to learn, right? And then you've got the dudes who, they're in the church, they just love toxic chicks overall. Let's keep listening.
But of course, God is not going to bless mess, okay? So if God knows our heart. At the end of the day, you can dress, covered up from head to toe. You can post a Bible scripture every day. You can go on live talking about, God and doing Bible studies and all of that. But God knows your heart, and he knows, if it's real or not. And he knew that it wasn't real, and that's why your relationship was not blessed. That's why it didn't work out. And I hope that you do, better your relationship with God and Jesus, but it's got to be for you and him. It can't be for somebody else to keep a man. Like, that's just, come on now.
I do agree with her point there that says it can't be for a man. Let's read a few comments here. This commenter says, Talitha Jane all over again. Somebody else who says, that's all it's ever for. Same with B. Simone. Somebody else who says, we all knew that it was for Asake, which makes it even funnier. Wait, was it really? Who is he? Who is Asake? Sounds like, I think that's like an Afro beats artist. Really? Yeah, this is this is Asake, but they're saying that he's Muslim, so they don't believe it's him. Here's someone else who says God isn't an accessory. Here's another comment that says same happened with Megan Good. Yeah, that's a good point. And somebody else who says Brittany Renner. Yeah. Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that after all that a lot of these chicks do, and by the way, I'm toxic, you're toxic. I hope you're not subscribed. If you are, hey, make sure you're subscribed. Somebody told me that they've been watching my content for like 6 months and they're not subscribed, which is okay. Subs are a vanity metric overall. I recognize, I see my people. But isn't it crazy that this is the same stuff that's spoken about here? And we say, hey, men don't want this. Men don't want wives who've had hella bodies, who are posting about, unrealistic, delusional dating standards and so on and so forth. But you are toxic for calling this out. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Moving on. This one's a sobering story.
I don't know if you guys have heard this. This is the worst story I've had to report all year. Denia Young, 29 years old, out of Seattle, unalived her 14-year-old son last Thursday with an extension cord. She caused 1,172 injuries to her son's body. 72 of those injuries were directly to his face. And what makes this matter even worse is that her other 3 children were in the house when this occurred, along with his stepdaddy, who did absolutely nothing to stop his stepson from being unalived at the hands of his abusive mother.
I think this is a disturbing story because of how this young man passed. I heard the story and I thought to myself, this is sick. This is very, very sick. A young man beaten to death by a mother who obviously could not control herself at all.
This beating lasted for more than an hour, and his stepdaddy never intervened. How can you call yourself a man when you sit there and watch this woman lose control and watch this child lose his life? You are yet to be charged, but you both deserve to be in prison.
So he says they both deserve to be in prison. Of course, I'm curious to know what you think. Let's check out a few comments here. It says, she had nothing but hate for that poor child. I think so. Here's somebody else who says that was pure hatred, built up anger and resentment. For your son? You know, part of the delusion of growing up, and I did think for a while I was very delusional, growing up with a loving mother and parents, is you hear things, or you hear, and I'm not talking about stories like this, I'm talking about you hear young people say things like, I hate my mom, and they genuinely say that, and you think to yourself, oh, something's wrong with that child. And I used to think that when I was younger, without being open to the fact that maybe that kid went through some extreme trauma that they couldn't process. Like, what happens to the child who went through this and survived, and now they either don't trust within relationships, or there may be a resentment towards people who remind them of their mother, so on and so forth. Some more comments here. This says 29 years old, 14 years old. She was 14 having babies. Wow. Wow. Another conversation there, another angle. 14 having babies. Could there have been some correlation between her inability to properly develop because she was too young when she had the child, and maybe resents him because he maybe altered her life? There's a whole lot here, man. There's a whole lot. What do you guys think? Of course, it's a horrible story. Part of me was actually thinking to myself, maybe this actually may not be true. Because, you know, you see a lot of stories that will come up. I was like, is this a true story? And everybody's talking about it. It's over here on Kiro 7. It says, Seattle mom, 18 son to death with extension cord, caused over 1,100 injuries. This isn't discipline, right? This isn't discipline a child. This is just straight evil is what this is.
That woman who beat her son to death, her 14-year-old son to death, for not having completed his chores when she returned home after work. She beat him with an extension cord for over an hour, to the point where the boy fell, hit his head, was unresponsive, and she continued to beat on him for another 5 minutes before she really realized that he was unresponsive. She went to work. She had a bad day at work. She probably had a bad week, whatever. And she proceeded to come home and crash out on her son. And this is the shit that we talk about when we say that not all of you guys deserve to be parents.
Right.
Because you really do look at your children as this like punching bag. You guys look at them as this release for your frustration. There's no way in hell y'all could tell me that she was beating him only because of the fact that he did not complete his chores.
Right.
No, she was beating him because she probably had a bad day at work. She probably got into an argument with a lover, a family, a friend, whatever. She probably has a lot on her plate, whatever, but she doesn't know how to regulate her emotions. And so she came home and she beat her 14-year-old son to death. And now she's asking for sympathy, talking about that she wants time and she wants to be released so that she can grieve the loss of the son that she killed.
What? Sometimes, like, I hear things and I'm just wondering, like, this is real. Like, I have to remind myself, this is real.
That she killed. Like, y'all be doing too much, and then y'all want to laugh at other people when they say that they want to exercise gentle parenting. Now, I'm not saying that gentle parenting is the best, you understand? I think that everything needs to be shaped, towards the child that you're dealing with. Sometimes you need to hit them on their, you understand? And sometimes you got a kid where talking to them thoroughly is, just as effective. But
this is the problem with, I think, with these type of situations, is that people will find because I've never reported on a situation like this, right? They'll find a situation like this, beat him with an extension cord to death. 1,100 injuries. And they'll say, this is why we need to gentle parent. You don't need to go to extremes. There is a place where you can find a close to enough balance where that child definitely can still benefit from good discipline and parenting. And so I don't think this should be an excuse, right? But this is what people do who just they lack nuance, and they're trying to now use this for something else.
But there's a reason why a lot of the new day, these new millennial or Gen Z parents don't want to use corporal punishment.
Stop it.
Because we realized that a lot of our parents was taking out their frustration and their anger with other adults or other factors that they could not control. And they were using us as a punching bag to relieve that stress and that frustration. And a lot of you guys have that mindset of it was done to me, and I'm okay, so I'm going to do it when I have my kid. No, a lot of y'all should not be parents. And honestly, I hope God deals with you. I do. I hope you repent, Miss Lady. But I do hope God deals with you.
What she's talking about?
I hope he does.
Oh, okay. I thought she was talking about people who discipline their kids. Listen, I'm somebody who got whooped, but when I look back at it, this would have never happened. And let me tell you something, because people are asking, well, why didn't the stepdad actually intervene? This is interesting. You guys might find this actually very interesting. There was a study that talked about the predictor. All right, so this is a video, and they had a segment here that talked about predictors for children getting hurt within a household. I can't say the actual word. And they talk about what increases the chances of that happening. This has to do with the question that was asked later of why didn't the stepdad intervene? This is what I thought about. Of course, I'm curious to know what you guys think. Check it out.
And in a second now, I'll unpack what that means. So there are certain patterns of crime.
This is Dyer, the CEO, and we have Godsod here, Dr. Godsod.
That happen in exactly the same way for the exact same reasons, irrespective of which culture it happens in and irrespective of time period. So it certainly can't be due to cultural factors. It can't be to era factors because it transcends all those things. So let me give you two examples from the book. And that was actually my eureka moment where I decided, I will now take this evolutionary framework and apply it to consumer psychology, to psychology of decision making, which eventually is the field that I founded. So two examples. Example one, and forgive me if I put you on the spot, it's worthwhile for that. What do you think is the number one predictor of there being child in a home?
So since my editor is going to actually mute that word, he says child hurt in a home. What's the number one predictor that a child would be hurt in a home, right?
An absent parent.
Okay, very, very reasonable answer. Yeah. And so usually in lecture one, when I'm teaching an evolution psychology course, I'll ask this question and I'll start putting all the students' answers. And they're all reasonable answers. If there is alcoholism in the home, if one of the parents had been abused in their past so that they mimic that behavior onto their children, then all reasonable. Well, what if and by the way, no one guesses what the real answer is. So then I say, well, guess what, guys? You just listed 25 reasonable predictors. The number one predictor is 100-fold more predictive than anything that's on that board. I've lectured this a million times. I'm getting goosebumps telling it to you right now. So let me explain what 100-fold means. In science, when let's say I want to check the efficacy of a drug and I want to compare it to a placebo, a sugar pill. Well, if it has a 1.2 odds ratio, meaning it's 20% more effective. So it's 1 to 1.2. That would be a big effect. 1 to 1.2. What I'm saying is 1 to 100. So it is astronomically greater effect than anything we would typically publish in science. Well, the number one reason, Stephen, I've kept you in suspense long enough, is if there is a step parent in the family.
What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of that? The conversation of how powerful it is to have biological parents. Now, I know that's, when it comes to science, harsh truths, dark science, some people like to call it. These are hard things to take in. No, it does not mean that every step parent is negligent, but I think there's a lot to think about here.
So there's 100-fold increase in child if the home is not made up of two biological parents. This is why the fable of Cinderella is such a universal fable, because it speaks to an evolutionary principle. The nasty.
Let's not skip over that 100-fold increase in children being neglected, right, within a home being hurt, if there are no biological parents.
Stepmother is only differentially nasty to her stepdaughter. She's actually very, very nice to her two biological daughters. So now you would say, well, what would be the evolutionary explanation for that? Well, we know in many, many species where you have very high parental investment, say, for example, in lion prides. Lions are the only feline group where they're a social group. Most other felines are solitary. The only thing that the male does is the copulatory act, and then he's off. Well, in lion pride, the males do invest heavily in their children. What ends up happening is there's 2 or 3 dominant males within a pride, and they kick out all the young males that are now coming up, so that there's all these frustrated young males in the savannah that are now looking to take over a pride. They will challenge the 2, 3 dominant males, and for a very long time, those older males will rebuff the attacks. But father time eventually catch up to you, and you're left with 2 choices as the dominant male. You either leave and you end up having a slow death out alone in the wilderness, or they will kill you. Now, when the new incoming lions come in, do you know what's the first thing they do? First on the agenda list, first thing they do is what?
They, I believe, kill the newborns.
They attack the kids.
Exactly. They kill off in a complete systematic infanticide genocide every single cub who by definition could not have been sired by them. Why? Because I'm going to spend a lot of energy and resources investing, because we are a biparental species as a lion pride. I don't want to be investing in another male's cubs. Therefore, now paradoxically, incredibly, after the females put up a big fight to try to stop those new incoming males, they end up losing the fight. First thing that happens after is the females go into estrus, meaning they become sexually receptive to the new males. So I joke with my students, in the human context, you put on Barry White music to get the ladies interested. You buy a beautiful gift. You pay attention. You want to get the ladies' attention in lion pride society, kill her children. So that's one example of how we've evolved the calculus in our brains to not feel as happy investing in other.
I think, following the story we just covered, that could be a very dark joke right there. So just, I didn't see that one coming.
Children in our own. Now, the next thing that ends up happening is some student will say, oh, but does that mean you are justifying through science child? And of course, the answer is no, right? An oncologist studies cancer. That doesn't mean he or she is for cancer. That doesn't mean they are pro-cancer. It means that if you want to understand cancer, you have to study it honestly. So if you want to tackle child, and you now know that step parenthood is the biggest predictor, that's a valuable tidbit to have. So that's example 1. Example 2, do you know, Stephen, who is by far the most dangerous individual that a woman will ever meet in her life? Whether it's the Yanomamo tribe in the Amazon, whether it's the Hadza tribe in Central Africa, whether it's in ancient Greece 2,000 years ago, or whether it's in Detroit, Michigan 2,000 years from now. Who is the most dangerous person by far that you will ever meet?
Let me think about this. Who's the most dangerous
Wow, I'm over here watching this. This is such an interesting conversation.
person she will ever meet?
By orders of magnitude more than anybody else. And the minute that I'll say it, you'll go, oh, no kidding. But the fact that you don't exactly demonstrates my point. And that's why evolution is so important.
I think the most dangerous person she will ever meet is
her future husband or the future man, the man who will give her children.
Another.
You're already off.
Okay, I don't know.
Her husband.
I was going to say. Okay.
There you go.
I was very.
Coffee man got it. All right, that's it. Interesting conversation. Definitely worth checking out. We went really, really, really out of topic with that one. Listen, guys, that's it. I appreciate you guys as always for checking out yet another episode of the Coffee Pod. To my soon-to-be married, and what a follow-up, right? Soon-to-be married and currently engaged men. Head over to fathershaverights.com. Make sure you get yourself the #1 guide to drafting a solid and legally binding prenuptial agreement for free with offer code REVIEW. Appreciate you guys. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.